News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Monica Ricks. And that's your closing bell on Wall Street, and a record day for both the Dow and S&P. The Dow added 646 points, up 1.3%. The S&P up 14 points, up 0.2%. The Nasdaq, though, got dragged down by AI news. It fell about a quarter percentage point. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.1%. The 2-year yields at 3.5%. Shares of Rivian Automotive fell about 5% today after the company unveiled it's working on its own artificial intelligence chip designed to replace NVIDIA's technology. The company says it's part of a broader push to enhance automated driving features in future vehicles. Oracle shares also continued falling today, down 11%, their biggest drop in almost a quarter century, after the company reported disappointing sales and more AI spending. And Disney announced a $1 billion investment in OpenAI today, licensing its iconic characters to Sora. That's OpenAI's short-form AI video platform. Disney CEO Bob Iger says that deal won't create a threat to creators because it won't include characters' name and likeness or voices.
The opposite. I think it honors them and respects them, in part because there's a license fee associated with it. The other thing it does is it enables us to be comfortable that OpenAI is putting guardrails essentially around how these are used, so that really there's nothing for us to be concerned about from a consumer perspective, meaning this will be a safe environment and a safe way for consumers to engage with our characters in a new way.
Disney's Bob Iger on CNBC. Hollywood studios have been reluctant to get into business with an AI company, wary of how it might use their data and of angering the labor unions which they work with every day. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy has floated the prospect of putting territorial control to a referendum, meaning he won't consider surrendering territory to Russia. But Zelenskiy says he will consider a vote to give up the whole of its Donbas region as part of a potential peace plan to end Russia's war. Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall has more.
The Ukrainian President Zelenskiy did tell reporters earlier today that this area in eastern Ukraine, the Donbas region, he says that the U.S. in a plan going forward would like to call it a, quote, free economic zone. We know that the Kremlin has been advocating for calling it a demilitarized zone if or when there is any sort of solution here that it is ultimately conceded from Ukraine's end.
Hear more from Tyler Kendall on the Bloomberg Balance of Power podcast. The White House says President Trump is aware of Ukraine's proposal ahead of more peace talks with officials this weekend. Meantime, Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke with his Venezuelan counterpart Nicolas Maduro by phone, expressing solidarity amid growing tensions with the U.S. That call reportedly took place after U.S. forces intercepted and seized a sanctioned oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt actually talked about the seizure during today's press briefing and says the U.S. plans to keep that oil.
The vessel will go to a U.S. port, and the United States does intend to seize the oil. However, there is a legal process for the seizure of that oil, and that legal process will be followed.
Venezuela has labeled the seizure a blatant theft and says it plans to defend its natural resources with absolute determination. A federal judge in Maryland has ordered the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Salvadorian migrant, at the center of legal and political battles over President Trump's immigration policies. Abrego Garcia has been fighting efforts to deport him while also defending against human smuggling charges in Tennessee. U.S. officials' latest plan had been to send him to Liberia, but a judge has temporarily blocked him from getting deported. The Senate has rejected a Republican plan to replace Obamacare subsidies that are set to expire at the end of the year. It wasn't expected to pass, but Brown University political science professor Wendy Schiller tells us that could set up a potent issue for next year's midterms.
It makes sense to voters now, particularly in the Democratic base, that their party has come home to them about what they care about most. And the Democrats, even though the Republicans edge them out on the economy generally, the Democrats edge out Republicans on things like health care and education.
Brown University's Wendy Schiller on Bloomberg Surveillance there. The latest AP NORC poll also shows that President Trump's approval on the economy has hit a new low. Just 31% of U.S. adults surveyed like how the president is handling the economy. That's down from 40% in March. And for a second time, a grand jury has declined to re-indict New York Attorney General Letitia James for alleged mortgage fraud. It's a major blow to the Justice Department, which had been encouraged by President Trump to prosecute James and another longtime foe, former FBI Director James Comey. A judge threw out the original indictment against James and Comey last month. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Monica Ricks, and this is Bloomberg.